Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating theological text that literally flips a script many modern Christians have been hearing their entire lives. It essentially asks us to take a step back and look way beyond just personal salvation, aiming for what the author calls the fullness of the kingdom gospel. We're going to see exactly what happens when we shift our focus from just waiting around for the future to taking real, concrete action right here in the present.
The source material drops a pretty provocative premise right out of the gate. It asks, what if the widely accepted message of simply getting saved is actually, well, just a fragmented, partial gospel? The text argues that modern Christianity has heavily promoted a message focused almost entirely on personal salvation. And, while the author agrees that is absolutely a crucial component, presenting it as the entire message completely misses the comprehensive scope of what Jesus, or Yeshua as the text often refers to him, actually taught. The claim here is that if you're stopping at salvation, you're looking at a totally incomplete picture. To really ground this argument, the text brings up a pretty wild empirical detail, the number 162. According to the sources, the phrases kingdom of God and kingdom of heaven show up approximately 162 times throughout the New Testament, with the vast majority of those references sitting right there in the Gospels. Think about that for a second. That is a massive amount of repetition. This isn't just some minor background concept we're talking about. It's practically written on every single page of Yeshua's teachings.
So, what does all that repetition actually mean? Well, the text argues that this incredibly high frequency proves something absolutely vital. Establishing the kingdom, not just securing a spot in the afterlife, was the intentional, primary theme of Yeshua's ministry. This focus wasn't just incidental, right? It was the main event. The message he preached wasn't just a roadmap for what happens after you die. It was a comprehensive, bold declaration of what God is doing in us, through us, and ultimately in all the earth, right here and right now.
This reveals a really stark contrast between two totally different paradigms. On one hand, you have what the text calls the escape plan narrative. This is that common cycle where believers get saved, endure the struggles of life, die, and then go to heaven. It's a mindset completely focused on personal survival and, frankly, just escaping the world. But the full kingdom message, it completely flips the script. Instead of the goal being to leave earth to go to heaven, it's all about bringing heaven's rule down to earth. It shifts the entire focus from simply surviving to actively exercising dominion and participating in God's present reality.
And I just love the way the author illustrates this. They use this brilliant architectural metaphor, writing, "Salvation is the door, but it is not the whole house." If you think about any house, the front door is absolutely essential. I mean, you literally cannot get inside without it. Salvation is that entrance. But if you just stand there in the doorway, you're missing out on the entire living space, the preparation for your inheritance, and all the kingdom relationships waiting for you inside. You're technically in, but you definitely aren't living in the house. The text argues that if we're only ever preaching the entry point, just that front door, it leads directly to spiritual immaturity and really weak discipleship. Think about it. If the whole message is just about getting saved, believers fully understand what they are saved from, stuff like sin, hell, and death. But they have absolutely zero concept of what they are saved for. And without knowing what you are saved for, you're basically left without any true sense of purpose or function in the present world. Okay, so how do we actually get past that door and into the house? The sources explain it comes down to a profound shift in identity, specifically embracing the concept of adoption. And this isn't just a nice, warm metaphor. The text describes it as a powerful truth that moves believers from being these distant, passive subjects of a ruler into actual bona fide family members in direct union with Christ. Because, a subject obeys from afar out of duty or even fear, but a family member, they operate out of oneness and relational proximity to the Father. This ties right into how the source redefines sonship, which is honestly one of the most compelling parts of the text. Actually, scratch any preconceived notions you might have about that word. It clarifies that sonship is not a physical gender term at all. Instead, it is a historical and legal standing. In that biblical and historical context, sons were the ones who inherited. So by applying the title of sonship to all believers, explicitly including women, it ensures that everyone is recognized legally as a full heir preparing for a legitimate inheritance. It grants access, authority, and a completely secure identity. Building on that foundation, the text outlines three main components that make up a believer's kingdom identity. First, you have the bride of Christ, which really emphasizes that relational union. Then, sonship, which, like we just talked about, secures legal inheritance and authority. And finally, the royal priesthood, which represents the active role of representing God on earth. When you put all these together, these identities empower believers to completely ditch that survival mindset and start actively ruling, reigning, relating, and representing the king in their everyday lives. Now, to actually live this royal identity out day to day, the text points to something you're probably super familiar with, but asks us to view it through a totally different lens: the Lord's Prayer. The author argues firmly that this was never, ever meant to be a rote script for mindless recitation. Instead, Yeshua provided this as a divine architectural blueprint. It is a daily alignment tool meant to take kingdom living from being this abstract, floaty ideal and turn it into a highly practical, everyday reality. In practice, how does this blueprint actually work? Well, it functions by establishing a daily priority. That central petition we all know, "Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven," is entirely about aligning our earthly reality with heaven's will right now. It establishes a daily priority to seek the kingdom first. In fact, the text advises that this blueprint should literally be the foundational rule guiding every single teaching, gathering, and personal devotion. It's an anchor, keeping believers hyper-focused on bringing God's rule to their present reality. So when you synthesize all of this together, the text maps out this incredibly structured, transformative journey. It starts by entering the door of salvation, but then it immediately calls you to step up and claim your legal identity through adoption and sonship. Next, you apply the divine blueprint of the Lord's Prayer to constantly align your daily mindset. And finally, you step fully into your active, dynamic role as a royal priesthood, representing the King on earth. It is a complete 180-degree shift from passive waiting to active, empowered living. As we wrap up this explainer, the source material hits us with a really challenging and honestly a very personal reflection on our own spiritual maturity. It asks, are you just standing at the door, or are you ready to actually live in the house? It forces us to evaluate if we've just been settling for a fragmented escape plan, or if we are truly ready to embrace our full identity, claim our inheritance, and step into our ultimate purpose of bringing heaven to earth. It's a powerful thought to chew on today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.